Efficiency Unlocked is hosted by two tech-savvy physicians and dear friends of mine, Drs. Adam Karu and Dale Gold, who are experts in using technology to automate routine tasks and increase efficiency in everyday and business life. Let's see what they have for us today.
Stay tuned for this series of episodes where we'll be discussing the game-changing impact of AI in the realm of patient care and physician well-being.
Get ready to unlock efficiency with NerdMDs.
Efficiency Unlocked.
She literally made a decision to quit private practice. She couldn't handle all the burden of just administration and stuff anymore. And she told me, this is too good. I changed my mind. I'm going to keep doing my practice.
Welcome to the latest episode of the NerdMDs podcast, Efficiency Unlocked. Today we have a special guest, Erez, the co-founder of Freed, a software company that is gobbling market share of the direct primary care market with their AI note writer. Freed is a simple and powerful tool that helps clinicians write accurate and comprehensive notes in minutes, saving them time and hassle. Erez started Freed to help his wife, Gabi, a family medicine resident who was overwhelmed by the documentation burden. Now, Gabi and countless other clinicians can enjoy more free time and focus on their patients, thanks to Freed. In this episode, we will hear Erez's story, how he built Freed from scratch, and how he managed to compete with the big players in the generative AI scribing field. This is a fascinating and inspiring story of the, quote, little guy who is making a big impact in healthcare. Stay tuned and enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, listeners. I'm pleased to be here with Erez from Freed, another one of these amazing companies who's really trying to transcend the way we take care of patients and document together with them. And the intro story I just gave around Erez, explained a little bit about him, but we want to dive into a little bit more of a detail around his why and why Freed came about. So Erez, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Fun being here, and appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, and we honestly just found out where he is physically located is almost in the exact same area that I was born and raised. So, small world around. So very cool to have you on the show, and we're looking forward to this. Let's kickstart this with, what we call the origin. Just want you to share about your journey and the inspiration behind creating Freed, and in general, this concept of these generative AI products. Why don't we start there?
Sure. So a little story that I'd like to share is when a few months ago, my wife name is Gabi. I'm going to mention her about 100 times in this story, in this podcast. So please remember her name. So we went to see our good friends here in Santa Rosa for Friday dinner. So they invited us, we come there. And then very naturally, myself and the other guy started cooking dinner while our doctor wives sat outside kind of in a nice sun Friday evening and did their charting. And I think the sad thing about it is that this is Friday evening. And it was so natural for us. Okay, we'll do the cooking, then we'll eat very quickly. They'll go back to charting. And over the weekend, fortunately, Gabi was off, so she could continue working on her charting and other tasks. And I think this is just a small example. I met Gabi 7 years ago, just before med school, and I really got to experience how this, I think clinicians are amazing people that really dedicate themselves to, a very important and greater cause. Just are burdened by this thing called charting and many other technical tasks that really burn them out. I can see a lot of our friends are clinicians of different sorts, and I can just really measure, the level of kind of burnout and frustration that they experience as they go deeper and deeper into the medical space. So it was very clear that there's a problem here that influences my life, my wife's life, and an opportunity to improve the lives of these, amazing people we call clinicians.
Yeah, that's a great story. And that resonates, I think, with a lot of the people that are listening, even if they are healthcare providers or not, because I think, all of us have a friend or a colleague or a neighbor that is probably in the healthcare space. And it's tough. I mean, I think we go into, starting kind of our journey to be a physician or a nurse or whatever for true kind of kind of true reasons that we want to help people. And then, it kind of hits you in the reality of, as you're going through it, you're like, wow, there's a lot to this job that is not just helping people. And, that's, there's a lot of these things that are changing that script a bit now, which is pretty exciting.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, the burnout in health, it's just so real, like how it's kind of weird, in the healthcare space, people speak about it as if you're having a cold, you have a burnout, or you're crying today at work, people quitting, suicide rates are very high in this profession. Mm-hmm. So it's very real. And I think technology can, not entirely eliminate this problem, but definitely contribute, especially with the technical tasks like charting, which are a big part of rightfully why people are burnt out.
Yep. Yeah. And that story you brought up with your wife and friend, that concept of doing all this administrative documentation and tasks, after hours, is kind of famously called pajama time. Doesn't sound like right. You guys are wearing pajamas in that story, but I'm sure that happens a fair amount. And I think these types of solutions are really, they're really tackling that problem head on and really, reducing that especially for the clinicians that are, seeing patients, 9 to 5, kind of a typical, business week. Can you kind of, so that, I mean, clearly that story explains why you wanted to create this company. Has there been anything else that's kind of helped kind of further shape that vision?
I think what truly shaped it. So this is my second startup. My first startup, we decided to shut down about a year ago. And I started exploring kind of the healthcare space. And it was actually pretty hard to find an angle and something that makes sense to do. And then literally overnight with one insight, everything started to make sense and work. And this was January 5th of this year. And the insight was that all this company is going to be about is to create useful stuff for clinicians. And I think that, in healthcare, so many of the incentives, it is so complicated with so many, weird incentives and whatnot, that simple principle that really in other markets is kind of very common. It's actually quite unique. And really that shaped everything from picking charting. This wasn't about charting, it was about clinicians, but picking that as the first problem, building something that is very affordable, easy to use, focused on the clinicians. So I would say that, I don't know if there was one moment, but this kind of principle that kind of emerged from the process, and also knowing my wife and being immersed in the life of clinicians, I think that's really the founding principle that made Freed. So far, I think for me a big success, and hopefully continues to be so.
No, that's great. That's super great. So, I think you've alluded to kind of the impact that, you kind of see this type of product and technology serving for the clinician burden and, across the board with these care teams. Is there, other than that great intro story that was very personal about your why, can you share a story or an example of someone who's used Freed already that you're aware of that kind of shared their experience with it or how it's really changed, things for the better for them?
Yeah, I think that's quite a few, but one that really stuck to me because it was pretty early on, and that's in some sense when I realized that, oh wow, this is working, was when one of our early customers and clinicians called me on a video call. Again, this was very early on, and she was literally yelling on me on the video saying, this thing is amazing. It's I can't believe it. And she was telling me the story of how she has private practice, how she she literally made a decision to quit private practice. She couldn't handle all the burden of just administration and stuff anymore. And she told me, this is too good. I changed my mind. I'm going to keep doing my practice. I don't like charting is so easy now. This is incredible. And obviously both that happening, but also the emotion. I think charting is such an emotional kind of painful experience that just the emotion that she was telling me, she was literally yelling to me on the call. So that was a very, very powerful moment that I remember. And then, we're receiving like so much feedback from clinicians. A ton of it is like, you need to improve this sucks and so on. But also quite a big portion is things like, I've been waiting for something like this for 15 years. I can't believe it's finally arrived. And I think this, I don't think we're geniuses. We're just, the technology became ripe and the problem is so painful, and you just marry the two together with the right user experience and focus. And so many stories every day we're hearing from clinicians. Clinicians are literally calling me, I want to invest in Freed, we want to be a part of it. So getting that feedback is truly what keeps me motivated.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. That's a recurrent kind of theme that I just heard you say from some of the others that I've talked to about this already. It's in some ways it's magical. I mean, truly, for like a clinician, if you think, especially for someone that maybe lived in the paper chart days and then, had to painfully change to the electronic health record and then had to learn how to be as efficient as they could in the health record in the electronic state. Right. Now, when you get this, it's like this amazing accelerator of, just a reality of that. It is so helpful. And,
right. Something that blew my mind very early on, I actually went to shadow some doctors and clinicians to better, I'm not a clinician, so I have to understand very closely what's happening. And I went to shadow this guy, half a day of clinic. And two things struck me. One, at 2 p.m., I was exhausted. It was the hardest thing, I ran marathons. This was the hardest. It was just because it's so intense from the first moment until the last moment. Yeah. But the second thing was how truly everything is centered around the chart and the EHR. The way we sit in the room, the way the office is set up, everything is doing in between. It was, we're literally all there to serve, take care of the charts, not ourselves and not the patients. So I think that's really where it struck me. Okay, this is not just summarizing Zoom calls. It's really, very fundamental thing that kind of influences, almost driving everything. So again, I think that how deep and painful it is why, and how relevant the technology is makes this just a magical moment that people have been waiting for the past 20 years. Exciting times.
It is. So when was Freed officially born as a company and a product?
Okay. So I started exploring just over a year ago after shutting down my first startup. I would say that January 5th was the inception moment where I literally wrote this document called Building for Doctors. Now it's clinicians, because we understand that this is, we want to be as inclusive as possible. And really the principle was the right thing for me as a founder is to build for doctors because 1, I love them. 2, I think there's room to create value for them. 3, I have the insight and access to these people. And 4 was there's actually a business incentive that wasn't there before because of all the burnout and lack of and shortage of clinicians and clinicians quitting. There's also kind of a business case for it that wasn't there before, making them happier and more productive and more free. So I would say January 5th was really the moment that the company was, got out of the womb and into the world.
Yeah, officially born. Cool. No, that's awesome. Yeah. So where, this, it's obviously no surprise. This space is competitive in the sense that there's very large companies that are backing this type of technology. And then there's, the example like Freed that has, is also in this space. And I think, I always like to point out on this podcast series that I personally think there's space for all of these, because, well, number one, it's America, and I feel like capitalism is there too. But even aside from that, I think the market is so wide for this, that there can be someone that is going to go after the big kind of enterprise customer. And then there's also this, there's the full spectrum all the way down to an individual clinician that has their own practice. And, I think one of the predictions that, my buddy Dale and I talk about a lot is we honestly think technology is going to actually cause the pendulum to swing and make kind of that old school private practice like more attainable and actually more enticing for physicians and other clinicians. So we'll see if that pans out. But I think so. Kind of specifically talking about Freed, where across that whole market, where do you see Freed kind of being the differentiator? For where you're going for and what type of customer you're trying to acquire.
Yes. So in essence, I would say that our main differentiator is being kind of the most clinician-focused solution out there. And I will give concrete examples, but this really means that we always start and end, how we do things, what we do with what does the clinician need, and everything else, revenues, what does the patient need, what does the system need, what I don't know who needs, is a result of that. And by the way, that's worked amazingly well so far for us. If I give a few examples, Freed is one of the only solutions that has completely free trial. You can go right now, try it, and if you email us, I want more free visits, we give you more free visits. We never said no to that ever. It's very affordable. So I hope, we price it really as affordable as we can to also have a sustainable business. $99 a month and we give 50% off to residents because we know that they are making very little money, like
awesome.
My wife included. And I think the user experience, why clinicians immediately fall in love, it's the simplest product in the world. It's one button, start and stop, and then you get your recommendation. So I think that's ultimately what would differentiate us. And this is why we go direct to clinician, why we have why we really serve kind of, the bottom of the market in terms of small groups, private groups, direct primary care, and so on. And also why we have a ton of variety, so clinicians just share. That's how you heard about from a doctor was using us and loving us. So I would say that's in essence what differentiates us. By the way, this is a good moment maybe to mention that we also, as a part of that, we want to offer to your audience $50. So they can always try the free trial, and then if they want to subscribe, $50 off the first month. I think
great.
That's in the description. So
perfect.
Just want to that. But that's in essence, we can go more into the details of what that means in the day-to-day or in the product or in the future, but that's really just being, as clinician focused as possible. That's how we see ourselves differentiating.
No, I love that. And I guess if listeners didn't catch that, he specifically said it's $100 a month, to subscribe to this. 99. Okay. We're under. Yeah. And I think that's significant because, I'll just say the large companies are not charging that price, and I think that's what's really important is
presentation and a demo. And again, I understand why, and let's integrate it. It takes a month. And again, that's fine. There's room for it. It's just very different than we want to really give clinicians a consumer grade, super good experience that they can just enjoy and just deliver the value to them. Everything else is a result of it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And, I think, what's cool about that approach is that it makes it so frictionless for someone to a clinician to start using this, as a part of their practice. I think, some large health systems may have guardrails in place where they don't want people to kind of just do this a la carte, but as long as you check with, the appropriate people in your system, these types of solutions can be used, in that way. And it, no, I think it's great you're going after. I know you use the phrase the bottom of the market, which makes it sound like it's a bad thing. But
and it's I need to work on the world either. Smaller. By the way, this bottom of the market, I'm now using quotes, is 47% of clinicians are actually operating in that.
Correct.
This different part of the market.
Yeah.
It's very big, and I think in many ways they, again, in different ways they suffer from these problems in kind of different ways. So we love our part of the market.
No, that's great. So, along those lines too, you kind of mentioned this very briefly a couple minutes ago, but, do you see a specific path where you think Freed will go kind of into the future, or are you going to let the company naturally progress, based on the customers who are using it and what, these clinicians are saying they want or need? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, actually, I think it's a good mix of what guided us here was mainly our clinicians. There are 17 different ways to leave feedback in the product. We get a lot of it. It's overwhelming because, again, a lot of it is, you can improve this, and we always want to improve it immediately. So that's a huge part of it. At the end of the day, I think more than strategy and anything else, just really focusing on your users and serving them well, that goes a really long way. Like when you go to a restaurant, if you don't get a good service, nothing else matters, right? So,
yep.
But on top of it, the way we see the world is this problem almost too quickly went from being, I would say it differently. If our goal is to maximize value for clinicians, I think that building the ultimately best performing AI scribe in the world, I think that's actually the wrong strategy, because unfortunately there are so many other problems: medical billing, pre-charting, inbox, pre-authorization, just so many problems that honestly, if you're smart and good at execution, you can apply AI pretty quickly and create so much value there. That our goal is really not to be, the top-notch best AI scribe. I don't even know what that means. It's because, again, this problem kind of became almost too easy to solve now. But if you really build an holistic experience where all these problems go away, and again, maybe it will take us 10 years, but, we don't want clinicians to do this technical work. We want them to come, understand the patients, be with them, help them serve many more patients, because we kind of enhance their ability to do that. So kind of, if we talk about vision, it's really to build the kind of most clinician-focused, AI-native clinician assistant that really takes clinicians through the holistic experience of being a clinician and helps with all the technical work. Need to practice a bit of how I'm pitching that, but that's the direction.
No, I think that's great. And, you kind of just led into what I was going to ask next, like if you were, obviously you said a lot of people learn about this product word of mouth, which I agree. I think that's like one of the best ways to spread, something really good, and good things generally do spread quickly in that way. But if you were like at a conference for, say, family medicine or internal medicine, and you were just kind of roaming around, and there was, physicians and other clinicians that were kind of roaming around too, what would you say to them, like in that brief moment where you have them captive for about, maybe 30 seconds to a minute of like why they should try Freed?
I can answer a bit of a different question. That's how we are doing sales and how we do it today, and I swear that's what we do. We come to the call and we answer the questions, literally tell them, take 3 of your clinicians, just have them try free trial. It's like the easiest thing in the world, and come back to us. And they always come back with, okay, the clinicians are sold, we are sold. So honestly, I think it's so magical and powerful that I would just urge them to give it a try. And usually the way I do it, if I had to kind of convince, is to tell the story. I think the story is real and works really well, which, I build this for my wife and friends. I want clinicians to have, to come home earlier, and, I want my wife to spend more time with me. Funny enough, now I'm spending more of my time on Freed, but never mind that.
Oh, the pendulum swings, right? That's good.
Right,
I mean, that.
Right.
No, I love that.
Actually, I really think the product sells itself in a crazy, in a very powerful way.
Yeah. No, that's great. Let's pivot the last portion of this, conversation to a little bit of fun questions. I mean, I've already alluded to you live in the Northern California Bay Area, but if you could live or vacation anywhere in the world, what's your favorite place to go, or your favorite place you aspire to go to?
Yeah. So Gabi and I got married just before residency, and we're still planning to do our honeymoon because during residency that's not a possibility. But yeah, what we plan to do it is we always want to go to Japan. Whenever I've been there, I think I'm fascinated by the food and by the culture. And of course, I want to have a honeymoon with my wife when she's not a resident anymore. So Japan, hopefully we'll do it at the end of residency this year, this coming year.
Very cool. No, that's awesome. And it's funny, you're not the first person who's actually said Japan. So
if the other everybody go to Japan now. It's interesting.
I agree. We were even talking about it in our family about, we need to figure out a way to make that trip happen too, and go experience that. Yeah. No, that's great.
About Japan.
Yeah. Now, this is totally a pivot, but I've been asking this question of all just mainly kind of for interest, but do you have like a car or a vehicle that you love historically or in the future, something that you enjoy or aspire to have?
Yeah, I still don't know. I'm pretty simple person at the end of the day. I really don't know if this applies, but I really like biking, mountain biking, road biking. So I think one day maybe just like getting like the most advanced mountain bike ever. Although I like simple ones, so that's my best answer. Unfortunately, when there are flying cars, I would try that too. But that's
it's funny that topic has come up too, because I feel like our entire life we've been promised like the flying car, like in thinking it's going to happen, and maybe it will someday. But
hardware is harder than software. So
yeah,
that would take time.
No, definitely. No, and I think, the biking stuff is great too. I mean, I feel like there's been so many pretty cool advancements in bikes. I mean, especially in like the e-bike range of things where, it started with like, little cruiser bikes that had, kind of the electric motors on them. And now you can get these like very, very high-end mountain or even street bikes that have this like e-assist, which I recently got one. I got a fat tire mountain bike for, the mountains up here in Colorado. Not because I felt like I needed it, but it allows me to go out on much longer rides now. And I can go out for a 1 hour plus ride up, 1,000 feet down, back up 1,000 feet down. And before, if I did that with a regular bike, I'd be spent, but it allows me to do it for kind of exercise and fun. And it's a hoot.
My gut reaction to it as a kind of every cyclist that sits in the past was, what is this thing? And then actually we live right next to some park here, and you see people riding this, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I mean, people enjoy, riding outside, and probably wouldn't be here otherwise. So yeah, it's cool stuff, and it's electric, which again is environmentally friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about, obviously there's a lot of problems in this world to fix. Is there something else that, outside of what you're already trying to do with Freed, where you see as like a big problem for society to tackle and to try to chip away?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the easiest question for me to answer in the past, for a long time, and that's I'm originally from Israel. We don't know what's happening in Israel. I have no idea how to solve it, but if I had the idea or ability, I think improving the situation in the Middle East, both for Israelis and Palestinians, I think it just. I mean, honestly, it's been quite a rough month, for both sides for clear reasons. Yeah. But yeah, that would be improve the lives of many people if we can do better over there.
Yeah, no, well said. I was wondering if you were going to mention that as your kind of thing to tackle, and it, I mean, I think all the different conflicts that there are around the world, historically, current, and even into the future. If there's a way to tackle that and solve those as quick as possible. It would be better for humankind for sure.
Yeah.
The next question that we usually ask in this kind of nerd alert round is, obviously Freed is making it more efficient for clinicians and tackling burnout. Is there anything else that you use as a part of your daily life where it unlocks efficiency for you? And if you were to have it taken away, you would be like, is there any product or service or something that you use that you would kind of fit into that realm?
I have a very, very boring answer, and that's when COVID started. Gabi was back then in med school, and I moved in with her. We were kind of long distance before, and everybody had their own kind of COVID habit that they started, and Gabi started making yogurt at home, and then over time, when she started residency, no time for anything, I picked it up. And I make and now, so every 10 days or so, I make like 2 gallons of yogurt. It's crazy. Literally every breakfast we eat is yogurt. Very easy, very healthy, gives you a lot of energy for the day. And on top of that, we also give it to friends, so friends like us more. And I'm giving that as an example because honestly, it makes our life more efficient and better. And it's very simple. So not everything, some way, there are always ways to improve your life with technology, without technology, but that's honestly had a huge impact on our life, this yogurt, and it's super tasty.
That's awesome. And then what do you guys eat the yogurt with? I'm just curious. Or is it not flavored? The way you make it initially?
Yogurt, 2 or 3% yogurt. So lots of yogurt with fruit and some granola.
Perfect.
That's pretty good granola. Costco as well, with like the low carb ones. Yeah. And that with coffee, I'm addicted. It's like the best breakfast in the world for me.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So maybe we'll see another startup yogurt company coming from Erez in the future.
Dude, honestly, I think that's like a thing because you can make so much yogurt, and in the store, they don't sell it in big enough portions, and it's like expensive and very wasteful. Like last week, I made this huge pot. It's a crazy amount. So I think there's a room for a business like that.
No, that's cool. That's very cool. No, thanks for sharing that. I think listeners wise, that's what the spirit of this podcast is about, sharing those types of things that can make your life efficient. I mean, I know one of my friends, she just posted this like morning setup that she was doing where she was making, it looked like about 20 breakfast burritos all lined up on her kitchen island, but she was making them for the week. And, for her, it's like, it's a process to make it all. But then, for the week, she said her husband, will eat those instead of, going out and buying food for lunch or whatever. It's, there's definitely efficiencies gained by doing that.
100%. Yeah, I think a big part of it is kind of routines. I think routines allow you to construct your life in a way that you don't need to think as much, and you can bring a lot of things and, spend the time where you want to, and not on every morning. What do I want to eat, and end up eating some, something less healthy. So anyway,
because it's quick and easy. Yeah, right. No, I think it is. I mean, it ties in. I don't know if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, but obviously it's a pretty famous book now. But do you got it over there in the rack? Yeah,
I haven't read it right there.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I are listening to it, when we drive, to and from the mountains here in Colorado, because it takes about 2 hours to get up there, and it's interesting and I think that's like what he talks about in that book is that, doing those little tiny things that eventually become a habit, and then you don't recognize them being a habit because you're just doing it regularly, but it leads to, efficiencies and generally being happy because you don't have to deal with that cognitive load of those things. So that totally makes sense.
100%.
So the next question is around, is there any type of technology or something that you are concerned about from the standpoint of containment or something getting out of control? Is there anything along those lines that you're particularly kind of concerned about?
Well, I would say, generally speaking, spend out of my time just thinking how you could apply technology to do useful stuff.
Yeah.
So in the day-to-day, I don't think about it much, but this question made me think about it. And I think one thing that comes to mind is, and by the way, I think every technology, all the way to the, atomic bombs can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
But then one that comes to mind is just kind of autonomous weapons. And I think it's interesting because you could imagine a world where, like much better world where if we have to have wars, which I guess so far it seems like we have to, you have autonomous weapons fighting other autonomous weapons and humans are not involved. And I think that's awesome. It's like playing a video game and see who wins.
Yeah.
But a much darker world is where autonomous weapons are much better at, killing people, which is not a good world. So I would say that's an area that, especially given what we discussed recent events, people wanting to kill people is a very real thing in the world. So that's something that comes to mind. But honestly, I don't spend much of my day-to-day thing. I'm trying to be optimistic and do what I can to use technology for the good and hopefully way, while they say, kind of balance the way towards technology doing good in the world.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's like the reason why I like asking this question is because you start thinking of these things that are, potentially so good, but then there's always going to be those bad actors, that are a part of something, but, again, I generally think there's more good people in the world than bad. And so you just hope that part, outweighs or wins out. And that when there are things that, are potentially highly technological and easily accessible and extremely dangerous, that we'll have some sort of way to combat those, so they don't get out of control. But no, it's a good example. It's a really good example. I guess, last question that I always like to open up for our guests is do you have any question for me that you're interested about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like this part. It was hard to choose, but, I'm always curious just to understand why people do things. So I wonder more specifically, what made you start this podcast? Doing a podcast is out of time, effort, I'm sure. So yeah, what made you start podcast?
No, it's a really good question. And I think, so I guess I'd answer it a couple ways. One, I really do just like being creative with different ways of kind of making things and kind of sharing things. So that's like one of the reasons. And then, I think the other big reason for it was, specifically around this topic itself is, it's a space where there's a ton of interest, a ton of growing interest, personally for me, but just everyone in the healthcare space, wants this. And, I think it's a good vehicle to get out there where, you can meet interesting people like yourself. You can have, learn about them, make connections with other people, and then, create it in a way that you can, get it out to other people to listen that want to, I mean, the podcast market is like extremely rich and competitive, but not looking to make money off of this or make this a job. This is more of, like truly like a passion hobby to try. And then the other part of it was I really wanted to try to figure out how to do this to make these episodes sound as professional as possible without having, the full production studio that some podcasts will rattle off at the end, when they go, yeah, we think our 3 editors, our producer, our director, our 3 sound people, I think there's a lot of very cool products out there to help independent podcasters like, get off the ground and do things in a very cool way. So that's the reason.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Awesome. No, I think it's a very, I wouldn't call it niche because the potential audience for it is that big, but it really, when I started kind of exploring this space, I was actually looking for content and specific content about this topic. I couldn't find much useful stuff. So this is awesome. And, if I understand and know clinicians, I think this is something that could truly benefit them. So
thank you. And thanks for asking that question. I appreciate it. So to wrap things up, I mean, you already mentioned that discount code that we'll make sure we put in the description of the podcast. But if any of the listeners of this one, Erez, want to try Freed or whatever, obviously they can just go to the website. But like, if somebody wants to contact you for a question or anything, what's the best way to do that?
Yes. Well, we wouldn't be clinician focused if I didn't share my email here. So just email is good. My email is just my first name, Erez @getfreed.ai. Yeah, reach out. Love to hear from clinicians, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is. And please try Freed. There's also, even before you use the discount, there's a trial, so try it out.
Yeah.
If you like it, let me know. If you hate it,
no, that's awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me today, and it was really fun to learn a bit more about you and your why, and also obviously a bit more about Freed and the story behind it. So, cheers from Colorado to California, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
You too. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for listening to Efficiency Unlocked, Nerd Tested, MD Approved, a Nerd MD's podcast by Drs. Adam Carew and Dale Gold.